Welcome back to Waters Ironworks. Today we're looking at The Home Blacksmith by Ryan Ridgway. This is a book that is targeted at beginner blacksmiths with, I think he's got 40 projects in there that you can start doing as you start your blacksmithing journey. So really very much focused at the beginner. Overall ratings for this book, and then I'll talk about why I gave the book that rating. For a beginner blacksmith, I think this is a pretty good book, and I gave it a 4 out of 5. For advanced blacksmiths, there's not really anything in here that you're going to learn. I gave it a 0 for advanced blacksmiths. For inspiration, I gave it a 4. There are 40 projects in here. They're pretty well presented. There's something that you can go out and take a look at. I'll show you one of those, or a couple of them maybe, over the next few weeks. And then for historical blacksmithing, I gave it a 0. Ryan does talk a little bit about the history of blacksmithing, but it's not the main focus of the book. So for beginner blacksmiths, 4 out of 5 stars. This book does a pretty good job of introducing blacksmithing. I don't think it quite rises to the gold standard of some books that are out there, like Mark Asbury's The Fundamental Skills of Blacksmithing, Volume 1. Even Lorelei Sims' book, The Backyard Blacksmith, and you can see those videos on my channel reviewing those books. I think those are really some of the best books that are out there for beginning blacksmiths. This isn't far behind them. There are a couple of things in here that I caught that were inaccurate. Off the top of my head, I remember there was a discussion around the percentage of carbon in steel, and it got some of those percentages a little wrong. Not maybe a huge deal, but especially if this is the first book that you're looking at as a blacksmith, I think making sure that all the information in it is 100% accurate is important. The second reason I dropped it down 1 point for a beginner blacksmith is, and I get where Ryan was going with this, he was really trying to emphasize, look, you can start blacksmithing with some very minimal tooling and a pretty easy to acquire setup, right? You don't need an anvil, you don't need a special purpose-built forge, you don't need to make sure that you've got a $300 hammer, right? Like, you can start blacksmithing very easily, and Ryan talks in here as he goes into the history of blacksmithing a little bit around what did the old smiths have? What do even modern smiths in other parts of the world have, and what do they forge with? And he's giving kind of this idea that you can do this in a lot of different ways and a lot of different setups, and that's 100% true. I don't disagree with any of that. Where I think it becomes a bit of a challenge is if you are a new blacksmith starting out. At least the questions I get when I talk to people who are starting, they want fewer options, not more options, right? Knowing that, hey, I can do, a coal forge or a charcoal forge, and I can build them in a bunch of different ways, and I can do all these things. In some ways, I think if you're a beginner, that makes things more complicated. It doesn't make it easier to get into the blacksmithing journey. So nothing Ryan says is wrong. I just, maybe it's a stylistic thing. I think opening up the wide variety of ways that you can do things, it's going to be helpful to some people. It's going to add, I think, probably some confusion to other people. The book is very attractively laid out. Some great full-page shots here. I'll pull up one of the beginning projects, the fire rake, so that you can take a look. And Ryan, and I believe his wife, Lynn, did all the photography here. Great job on the photography, some beautiful shots in there. What you'll see is that there's a text description of how to do the project with accompanying photos showing you the details on the project. I love to see this in a book. I think having those photos along with the text description really makes a big difference. He also includes some different hints and tips, very clearly calling out kind of what you need and as you go through. So overall recommendation for the book, like I said, you're a beginner blacksmith, you're looking for some relatively easy projects to go get started with, some basic tools that you can make, this is a good book, right? I would recommend purchasing it and taking a look at it. You know, if I'm looking at what books I'm going to buy, again, still, I'm probably going to recommend Lorelei Sims' Backyard Blacksmith first. But this is going to be one of the ones that, you know, that I would say, yeah, go out and pick this up. I might pick it up before Mark Asbury's Fundamentals of Blacksmithing, just because that is a much more expensive book. But you're not going to go wrong with this. It does have some fun projects in it. You can see the full review, and I'll list out what all those projects are on my website. Drop a link to that in the comments if you're interested. So, the Home Blacksmith, recommended for beginners. If you're a more advanced blacksmith and you're not in need for some project ideas, you can probably skip this book. But overall, a good starting book for a beginner blacksmith. Thanks so much, and we'll take a look at a couple of these projects in the next few videos.